Most people ignore this business, but it made me $30 million. I started out painting houses and now run an 8-figure company without working more than 30 hours a week. Here's exactly what I did, my biggest mistakes, and how you can copy me to build an insanely profitable business yourself, even if you don't have money to start with. Let's start at the beginning. My first business started when I was 18 years old, knocking on doors as a part of a college internship. I had no experience, no special skills, and had no idea that this business would eventually turn me into a multimillionaire. I worked at this company called CollegeWorks Painting, and that year in business was one that changed my life forever because I learned the most fundamental parts of building a business. For me, it was knocking on doors, dropping flyers, networking my existing clients, and learning how do I generate business from nothing. One of the reasons the company did painting as an internship is because it's simple. And I think some of these simple businesses often get overlooked, like painting. Painting is not a difficult business. There's tons of houses out there that need painting year after year. They need to be painted over and over again. There's a lot of people out there know how to paint their house, but it's a huge, huge market. One of the hardest things we had to do was convince college students on why they were gonna run a painting business to learn business, because they thought it wasn't very cool. These unsexy businesses are some of the sexiest businesses because they are massive, massive opportunities, and they're actually pretty simple, and they're not being done very well. Working at this company started to plant the seeds for me of what a huge opportunity there actually is in the painting business. So after running my own painting business in my first year of college, I took the next step and started teaching and leading others to do the same. After my first year with the company, I performed really well that I had an opportunity to become a district manager. And I ran a small team of interns that next year that did around $250,000 in business, but I learned even more. So I came back and did another year as a general manager, and I proceeded to do that for a few years. I loved learning more about business, and the last year that I was with the company, I became, we'll call it the VP of sales, but basically what I did is I launched a new business model for the company that was focused on just marketing and sales as an internship. So we recruited college students. We would go down together as a group, knock on doors, generate possible customers and leads, and then the next day we'd go down and do estimates for all those customers, and we would generate sales. And then my job was to actually work with all the subcontractors and crews to get all those jobs produced. During those 6 years, I generated about $2.5 million in business, mentoring 80 to 100 college students during that time. I was putting in 50 or 60 hour work weeks and 16-hour days on weekends while I was going to school on a full course load. During that time, I developed and had to develop some incredible time management skills and discipline with my calendar because I simply had too many things going on. I could not possibly keep it all straight without incredible time management skills, which I think has become one of the most important pieces to my success and the people I coach is how you manage and run your time. After college, I had a $100,000 per year job offer, but I turned it down to start my own business with $200. The company that had offered me the job was actually a sister company of the company I'd been working at. And the job offer was not just $100,000 a year, it was plus 30% equity in the company, which sounded like a pretty good deal. They had a proven business model and they wanted me to run the thing, but there's one catch. Jay, the guy I was talking to, said, "You can expect to work 60 hours a week." I said, "Man, I have been working 60 hours a week during school so that I wouldn't have to work 60 hours a week after school. So thanks for the offer, but no thanks. I'm gonna just do my own thing." And I didn't really know what I was gonna do, but I did know how to run a painting company. And I had no plans of building a big painting company, but I knew exactly what I needed to do to make $50,000 to $70,000 a year on a painting business without hardly working on it because I developed the skills I needed to be able to do it. So that's what I did. I started my painting company called Foothills Painting in 2010, and I started it with $200, as minimal as possible because frankly, I didn't have any money. I was a broke college kid still. I registered my business, I got basic insurance. I went out there with a girl named Faith and we knocked on doors for 3 hours, 6 hours between the two of us, and 11 people said, "Sure, I'll take a free estimate." 6 people did an estimate with me and I sold 5 jobs for about $11,000 in business. I got these 5 jobs done in the next 30 days, working just a few days, and made about $4,000 in profit. I did just enough to pay my bills through the winter. And then our first full year in business in 2011, I grew Foothills to $150,000. I brought in Ben to do marketing sales. Said, "Hey Ben, if you want, you can generate your own leads through door to door and do the estimates and just give me the jobs and I'll get them produced." And he said, "Yeah, sounds like a good gig." He was a college student. And so Ben came in, he did most of the sales that year, and I would meet with him once a week, collect the projects, and then I worked with my contractor, Jay, who had been working with me for a while, and he would get the jobs done. In that year, I worked about 5 hours a week on my painting business, did about $150,000 in sales, and made about $55,000 to $60,000 in income. Over the next couple years, the business just grew. The next year, someone else approached me and wanted to work for me, so he started managing the projects, and Ben's friend wanted to do what he was doing, so he came in and started doing more sales. And so now I would just meet on Monday with my 3 people. They would hand me projects, I would hand them over to Paul, and we did about $390,000 in business, and I made about $80,000 in profit the second year, also working about 5 hours a week. By the third year in business, we did about $650,000 in business. I made $110,000 in profit. Most people think that entrepreneurship is this crazy thing where you're gonna have to work long hours and you're gonna sacrifice and it's gonna take you years. But the truth is, the key to success is just simple, scalable systems. And in this business, there weren't that many systems we needed to know. We need to know how to get a lead, and it's really not that hard. How to sell a job, and it's really not that hard. And then how do we hire a good subcontractor to get those jobs produced, which is really not that hard. Those were the 3 things I knew how to do. And then we just charged enough that the money was there at the end of the day. So the key is systems. And when I look back, like I was working 50 or 60 hours a week in college, generating less income for myself because we were just doing it the hard way. But once I wasn't doing it the hard way, it's really simple to generate a lead, sell a job, and produce those jobs, which I was able to do because I had those simple systems in place to be able to build this business from day one without ever working much more than 5 to 10 hours a week on my business. Eventually, I decided to start other businesses, all of which failed, which taught me one of my biggest lessons ever in business. I did a bunch of different things. I started a clothing and apparel company, and we designed all the stuff and we ordered all the shirts and apparel. And then on the first day of selling, realized I don't really want to do this business. I don't want to sell $20 t-shirts one at a time. And literally that was the first day in business, and it was literally our last day in business. I also did a network marketing business for a while where it was a travel company, and you sell this opportunity. And the thing I didn't like about that business, every person I know, every person on my contact list, my friends, my family, like everyone is a lead in that business. Every person I met was a lead, and I just didn't like that. I also got in that business because the promise was, this real passive income, but I saw some of the people at the top of the company like going down levels, and I started to realize that there's no such thing as like real passive income. If you stop working, your team stops working. When your team stops working, your business declines. I also got involved in a Ponzi scheme. No joke, I actually got involved in a Ponzi scheme, did not know. In fact, I got presented this opportunity and it seemed too good to be true. So I put like $1,000 into it just to test the waters out for a few months. And I'm like, wow, I'm actually pulling like great money out of this. And I put like $10,000 in, which to me at the time was a lot of money. And no kidding, the next day, the company was seized by the SEC for being a Ponzi scheme. I also started a consulting company, and I was consulting local service companies, and I didn't enjoy it, but I eventually closed that down pretty quickly. All the while, over those 2 to 3 years, my painting business kept growing. It was paying all my bills. I was traveling a ton. I was golfing 10 days every 2 weeks. I had an amazing lifestyle. I was making great money, and it was all from the painting business. But I was putting the least time into the painting business. And I remember driving down the street one day when it just hit me like, man, if I would have just put 15 hours a week into my painting business last year, I would have made a lot more money. It would have been more fulfilling. I'd have a better foundation in my business for next year. What am I doing? And that was when I decided like, I'm gonna just go all in on the painting industry. Like, what am I doing chasing shiny objects? Soon I realized that to scale my business, I needed the right team, and I wasn't gonna be able to do everything myself. So for the last 3 years, most of the hours I was working in my painting business were actually training and developing Ben. I saw Ben as the key leader in the future of my company. So I actually brought in Ben as an equity partner in Foothills. And I said, hey man, here's a big chunk of the company in equity. You're not paying me anything for it. The deal is you run the company now and I work with you. So at the time we had a handful of sales reps now and a couple production managers now, and a team was building, and that whole team now reported to Ben. The very next year that Ben took over the business, he grew it from 650,000 to over $1 million and improved our profit margin. And so although I had less ownership in my company, the next year I actually worked even less in that business, and I made the same money because Ben had ownership, he cared, he was all in, like it was his business now, and his performance immediately improved when he really had that seat at the table. Since then, Ben has continued to grow the business every single year since taking it over. Now, Foothills is on pace to be a $9 or $10 million business by itself. Ultimately, if you want to build and scale a company, like, you can't do it all yourself. You need other people. You need people to step into leadership roles. You need people to take on other accountabilities to free you up to take on more in the business. And you need to have leaders who are stepping up and taking those things off your plate if you really want to scale a business. And Ben was the first person who really did that for me. Once I stepped back from my business day to day and I saw it growing like crazy, I realized something. If I could do this with one partner, why don't I do this with more? And at the time, I was coaching people online how to start their painting businesses, and I just started having conversations with people that were following me about partnering. And the most obvious thing was to franchise. That's what kind of was hot. I mean, it's really hot now. It's like franchise, franchise, franchise. And the more conversations I had with people about franchising, the more I didn't want to build a franchise. I'm a big believer in aligned incentives and alignment, and fundamentally a franchise does not tick all the boxes that I think are important. I love entrepreneurship. I love people, and the conversations about a franchise felt really transactional. First, it's this very tight agreement where it's, I'm gonna give you this, you're gonna give me this, and then you're gonna pay me forever. What also I don't like about a franchise is the incentives are not aligned. The business owner wants to maximize profit. The franchise wants to maximize revenue because the franchise gets paid on royalties from revenue and the business owner gets paid on profit. So the incentives are fundamentally misaligned. I also didn't like the necessity of restricting territory. You have to restrict territories with a franchise, which fundamentally limits an entrepreneur's ability to grow and scale their business. I just didn't see any way that offering a franchise opportunity was really aligned with like our heart and soul and what mattered to us. We love people, we love entrepreneurship, we want to be right there side by side with people. So we decided to create a partnership opportunity where we would start partnering with people to build and scale companies. So at the time, I was running Painting Business Pro, where I coach and train painting contractors to scale their business. And then we said, hey, also, we're gonna start launching companies. And so there's some people who wanna partner with us to start and scale their company, and we'll create a partnership and we'll launch a business together. The most important thing in building all these partnerships and building any partnerships we do today is alignment. Because if you can't find like alignment and aligned incentives at the very beginning, when it's all exciting and all upside and all opportunity, then anything that's misaligned is just gonna become bigger problems later. And you see that with so many disgruntled, upset franchisees who didn't realize the misaligned incentives and the problem they were getting themselves into. It's absolutely key. So with my companies growing like crazy, I thought I was gonna build a $100 million empire like overnight, but instead, I almost lost everything. So we've got this great idea now where we say, hey, we're gonna launch partnerships and launch companies and startups with people. And so we started our first one in August of 2014 with Mike, and he was working a full-time job that he hated. And within 4 weeks, he was able to quit his full-time job. And by the end of the year, he was making more money from the business with us than he was making at his previous job. He had more time with his family and had a better Christmas. And we said, hey, that worked. Let's do some more. Beginning of 2015, I think we started 5 more, and a couple of them failed quickly for a number of different reasons, but 3 of them were successful. And by successful, I mean, the business grew, it was really healthy profit, our partners were happy, the businesses were growing, we were happy, we felt pretty good about ourselves. And so we got to the end of 2015 and we said, all right, we can help people build $1 million painting companies. So in 2016, we started 9 companies and it was chaos. In 2016, we were running 5 companies at the time, and we added 9 more. And so Ben was my partner on this as well, where he would fly out and launch the new company. So we would get out there and we would train them on like some basics with marketing and get their first leads. He'd do their first estimates and sell their first jobs. He'd hire their first crews. Sometimes he would even get the first house painted in 7 days. Every other week, he was on the road launching another company. So he's in Dallas for a week launching a company, and he's back running Foothills for a week. Then he's in Charlotte launching a company, and he's back for a week. Then he's in Chicago launching a company, back for a week. And he did that through April, where he was literally launching a company every other week and then running Foothills. And then I had 15 direct reports where I was the one personally coaching and supporting these partners. And it was awful. By August of that year, we closed 8 of the 9 companies. And we lost about $70,000, lost all of our life for those 6 months. I remember being on a ski trip with my wife and a bunch of friends, and I had no fun at all. I was literally like working the whole day, and everyone was failing. Like, we did not have the resources and the infrastructure to support this many partners. So as painful as that year was, it was probably the most valuable lessons that I've ever had in business, because what we did differently coming out of that is what staged the foundation for what's happening now. We realized that we were very young, naive, and arrogant. We did not have the necessary infrastructure to be able to build something. We didn't even have that great of a business at the time to scale. After losing nearly everything, I knew I had two choices: keep chasing fast growth or build something sustainable. I chose the second option, and that changed everything for me. For us, building a sustainable company meant actually just working on making the business itself better. In 2019, after recovering from the brutal years, we sat down as a whole company. We said, hey, what are we gonna really build here? And we said, well, we still wanna open more locations and we still wanna scale because we wanna create more opportunities for people and we wanna provide opportunities to our team to grow and build careers, but we wanna do it the right way, which means we need to build the right foundation in the company first, which means we need to get a lot of our systems down. We've got to get, our marketing systems really dialed in. We need our sales process to be better and more properly documented. We need our project management better. We need to deliver a better experience to customers than we do today. We need to get our CRM in place. We need our financials to get buttoned up. We need to improve our whole HR process with how we recruit talent, how we train people and develop people, what our management structure looks like. And we said, okay, well, let's do that next year. Let's get those systems dialed in next year, and then the next year we'll be ready to go again. And as you can imagine, we got to the end of the next year where we looked at the plan and we're like, are we done? Nope, run it back. We've got a lot more work to do. And what we thought was gonna take us about a year to build the foundation for our business, it ended up taking us about 4. And during those 4 years, we were not focused on growth. We were not focused on marketing. We were not focused on sales. We weren't focused on bringing in more bodies. Yet, we grew substantially. We went from 7.5 million in 2020 to 9 million to 12 million and then to 16 million in 2023 to 2024. As we worked through all those 4 years, what we also knew though is we were building a really healthy, sustainable company. Like, our company was truly great. And I saw so many other painting companies, because I work with hundreds and hundreds of contractors in the industry, that almost nobody puts enough time into building like the really strong infrastructure in a business. And when you do that, you bulletproof your business. Obviously, one of the challenges during that time was we dealt with COVID. So literally in 2019, half of our business came from door-to-door marketing. And then COVID happened and we had to shut down door-to-door completely. We had 20 some full-time employees at the time and all of our crews and subcontractors, and we didn't want to lay anybody off. And so in a 4-week period, we went from all of our focus on door-to-door to completely pivoting, launching digital marketing and Facebook ads and so many other things. And we actually grew our entire company from 5.8 million to 7.5 million during COVID while losing our #1 marketing channel. To this day, we haven't actually brought door-to-door marketing back. We might. It's still a great and amazing opportunity, but getting that system in place for marketing in our business during that time has really led to like some amazing growth in our company. And what we found is that focusing on just making our business better, training our people better, developing leaders better, making our business better actually produced more healthy, sustainable growth than focusing on sales and marketing ever did. By 2023, the business was thriving, but I knew we hadn't hit our limit. The question was, how can we scale faster without breaking what we built? So now something kind of serendipitous happened. All the people that I was coaching at Painting Business Pro, which is hundreds and hundreds of painting contractors, we had an event. And one of the women, Jess, at the event, she heard me keep mentioning National Painting Group and what we were doing there. And she sat me down at breakfast on the last day and started drilling me, saying, Eric, what is this National Painting Group thing? What are you doing? And at the time, we were starting painting companies. But frankly, we didn't have a great track record starting painting companies. It's really hard to pick who's gonna step up, and there's a lot of issues with startups. But Jess was already running a great business, and the more we talked, the more we felt like, hey, this partnership is just meant to be. And we ended up making an acquisition into Jess's company to help her scale her business. So rather than doing a startup, we did an acquisition with someone who is already in business, but wanted to tap in to our systems, our coaching, our leadership, our everything to scale faster. So that was really eye-opening for me and for us. And so over the next couple of years, we did another acquisition, and that one worked out really well too. And we started to see, man, these acquisitions are a way better way to go because we're partnering with people who we've already worked with, who are values aligned, culturally aligned. We've been coaching them on their business. We're bringing them in to our organization and helping them scale. So this experiment with Jess led to another acquisition, and both Jess and Emmanuel ended up being like amazing partners. So we said, hey, you know what? We're gonna stop doing startups and we're gonna shift our focus to acquisitions. We wanna find people who are values aligned, who are just years behind us and want to partner up with us and support us. And so in 2024, we ended up making 7 more acquisitions, which rounded out, if you include our acquisitions, $30 million in business at the end of 2024. And in 2025, we see a clear path to scaling our business to 40 million, not including any new acquisitions we plan on doing in 2024. So this acquisition model has allowed us to grow way faster because we're not partnering with someone and starting at zero and going through those early years. We're coming in and working with people who are already 2 to 5 years, 6 years into the business, who already have revenue and already have huge opportunities for us to impact. So as you build your company, when you do it the right way, the things you build become incredibly valuable for what's next. So be aware of what you've built and how you can leverage that to scale even faster or create more business opportunities. Currently, we operate 12 painting companies. In 2024, those 12 companies did $30 million in revenue. And in 2025, we have a clear path to $40 million in revenue before any new acquisitions this year. So we love what we do. We're just getting started. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe because I got a lot more good stuff coming.